When I was a kid, I loved Christmas. I know, shocking, right? It was my favorite holiday. For me, Christmas meant being with family, sharing gifts with loved ones, and just seeing how happy everyone was to be together. Just kidding, it meant getting presents. I loved Christmas because it meant getting stuff. On Christmas morning, I would wake up at the crack of dawn, run out to the tree, and be so happy. Santa hadn't passed us by after all, even though we stayed up past our bedtimes. Now, I wasn't allowed to open any of my presents before everyone else was up. I have always been a morning person, but I could open my stocking. Years later, I realized this was Mom's way of buying herself 10 more minutes of sleep. And that's about how long it took me to open up that pair of socks, the Pez dispensers, and all the candy, sampling a few chocolates along the way before I started doing helpful things like, I don't know, making breakfast, which always seemed to involve a lot of noise. And if all the noise the pots and pans made wasn't enough, I found other ways of gently hinting that it was time to get up. And when everyone was awake, we'd sit around the tree and all open presents. Well, my brother and sister and I would open presents. Mom never seemed to get that many toys, yet she still seemed to enjoy the holiday, like she got pleasure out of how happy we all were. She was weird. For years, that's what Christmas meant to me, or at least that's why I looked forward to Christmas. Getting presents, opening presents, playing with presents. When I was 16, something happened that changed that forever. It was my junior year in high school, and it was about a week after Thanksgiving. I was working at McCrory's, a local 5 and dime, and it was a normal night until my sister came in tears, and told me that Mom was in the hospital. We drove there together, and when we got to the hospital, the doctors let us in to see Mom one at a time. When I went into the room, Mom wouldn't talk to me. She wouldn't tell me what was going on. There was a male nurse with her, and he kept talking to her like I wasn't there, saying things like, "I know you want to say it, but it won't come out, right?" And she kept nodding and saying yeah to him, but not talking to me. It scared me. I thought that she was dying and didn't know how to tell me. It turns out Mom had suffered a severe stroke. It wasn't that she wouldn't talk to me, it was that she couldn't. On the night of her stroke, Mom could hardly speak at all, but by just a few days later, she was able to remember and say, "I love you, Erica. That's my sister." And yes, it annoyed me that she got Erica's name before she got mine, but I forgave her. After all, when the doctor held up a pen and asked her what it was, she still called it a cow. In addition to the aphasia, the trouble speaking, my mom also lost sight in one eye. Her hand kind of shriveled up, and she had trouble standing without falling. After a week and a half in the hospital, Mom was moved to an inpatient rehab center. During the day, while I was in high school and my sister was in college, Mom went back to elementary school. She had occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, and recreational therapy, pretty much every kind of therapy other than actual therapy. And she enjoyed her classes, relearning everything she had known how to do just a few weeks earlier. But unfortunately, at night, she shared a room with an awful old lady who complained about everything, including the fact that my mom had visitors. And truth be known, I hated visiting. As much as I loved my mom, I wanted out of there as soon as I got there. It smelled like a medicine truck and a sewage truck had gotten in an accident. And it was packed with these old people who all looked to me like they were demented. It was scary. I hated that my mom was stuck there. But whenever we went to see her, she always worried about us, my sister and I. She'd always say, "Poor kids," like we were the ones suffering with everything she had going on. But we told her that we were doing fine, even though it was really hard being on our own. I mean, my sister and I, were great at making Kraft macaroni and cheese for dinner, and pouring milk over Cookie Crisp cereal for breakfast, and being the obvious health nuts that we were, skipping lunch altogether to lose weight. So we had meals covered. But buying groceries, balancing the checkbook, paying the bills, including the hospital bills that started right away, that was hard. And then there was Christmas, just a couple weeks away. In a monumental failure of judgment, the Rehab Center decided to cheer the place up a bit by piping Christmas music over the loudspeakers all day long. And yes, it was as ironically depressing as it sounds. If Mom wasn't worried about the upcoming holiday before, she was now. On one of our visits, Mom told me where she had some Christmas cash stored away. She wanted us to buy gifts for each other so it would still feel like Christmas on Christmas morning. Unfortunately, they told us that they didn't think Mom would be home for Christmas. In all likelihood, we'd be spending Christmas morning at the Rehab Center. And the horror of that prospect was driven home by the fact that pretty much every time we went to visit her, they played "I'll Be Home for Christmas." You can count on that song to make you cry if the person you love won't be home for Christmas. My sister and I were barely holding it together financially, so we didn't spend Mom's Christmas money on Christmas. We spent it on groceries and bills. But as much as I felt like a Grinch, 2 of my friends chipped in and bought us a Christmas tree. Another one gave us cash to buy stocking stuffers. And even though my sister and I were not in the Christmas spirit, we felt like we had to decorate and do Christmas, if only because the people supporting us wanted us to. We decorated the tree, we hung the stockings with care, we wrapped the few measly presents we scrounged up, and we tried very hard to invoke the Christmas spirit. And then on Christmas Eve, when we went to visit Mom, they released her. They let us take her home for Christmas. On Christmas morning, I woke up before everyone else. I opened my stocking, the one I had stuffed the night before. I ate a few chocolates and I made breakfast. But I didn't make any noise. I figured Mom deserved to sleep in as late as she wanted to. Christmas should have sucked that year. I mean, there were no presents at all, like no toys for me to play with. But somehow, we were all still happy. And I realized that morning why I've always loved Christmas and always will. Because it means being with family, sharing gifts with your loved ones, and seeing how happy everyone is just to be together.